Dana White is known for his petty beefs in the past with people like Ariel Helwani.
Nobody's here telling Ariel Helwani jack shit.
Oscar De La Hoya.
Oscar De La Hoya, you're in the business. You have to deal with this moron.
And even YouTuber Jake Paul.
Jake?
Dana's also had problems with a lot of other fighters like Tyron Woodley.
You ask fans if they want to see Woodley fight again. I think that would be a flat out no.
And even the greatest of all time, Anderson Silva.
Do you feel as though Anderson, when he fights at 185, continues to let you down?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
With Dana's known history, I want to point out something that a lot of people aren't talking about, is the unspoken beef between Islam Makhachev and Dana White and why this whole thing started. A lot of people don't know the origin of this, and it's not because Islam disrespected the promotion of UFC 284. It goes beyond that. This has been a 1.5-year journey that I'm going to walk you guys through today. Welcome back, guys, to the channel. I hope you guys are enjoying the content. Please hit the subscribe button because it would be extremely helpful, and share this video because I'm trying to get more of an audience. So if you guys could just take the time out of your day and do that, that would be very much appreciative. And let's get into the beef.
If Volkanovski could pull this off, it's obviously massive. And if can pull it off, it's he's on his way to building an incredible legacy.
But to get into the beef, let me explain to you who Islam Makhachev is. A lot of people know Islam Makhachev as a close friend of Khabib Nurmagomedov. Now, Khabib and Dana are on pretty much good terms, which is why I kind of find it interesting why Dana doesn't like Islam. Where did this beef start? Well, it starts in the beginning of 2022. Charles Oliveira was just coming off submitting Dustin Poirier in the 3rd round in a fight where a lot of people thought Dustin Poirier was going to destroy Charles Oliveira, including myself. Now, although Justin Gaethje was the clear #1 contender in the lightweight division, there was a lot of confusion of who would get the title shot after Justin Gaethje. So the UFC decided to make the fight Islam Makhachev versus Beneil Dariush for February 26th of 2022. Now, about 2 weeks before the fight, Beneil Dariush would pull out because he broke his ankle. Now, this was an injury that was expected to be way worse than it actually was, but that doesn't really matter to the story. So Islam Makhachev, without an opponent, was set to fight a late replacement Bobby Green at a catchweight main event for the UFC Fight Night. As a lot of people expected, Islam Makhachev absolutely destroyed Bobby Green. Bobby Green even describes Islam's strength as something he has never felt in his life.
There's 2 people that I moved around with. I'm not going to say their names, but I was like, that's interesting. I moved with thousands of guys. That was interesting. I told my coach the same thing. There was something interesting about Islam, and I felt it. I'm like, it's just not human.
The fight only lasted 3 minutes and 23 seconds, and Islam took little to no damage. Now, the following week would be the pay-per-view of UFC 272, and I'm going to keep the Islam story on a hold, because we're going to have to flash forward to a week before where the UFC main event was supposed to be Rafael Dos Anjos versus Rafael Fiziev. Now, that fight night would be canceled due to visa issues from Rafael Fiziev, and the UFC decided to postpone that fight night main event to the pay-per-view card of UFC 272, which was headlined by Jorge Masvidal and Colby Covington. Now, days after Islam Makhachev's flawless win against Bobby Green, it was revealed that Rafael Fiziev had caught COVID and was no longer allowed to fight in the co-main event in UFC 272. Now I'm going to have to flash forward about 4 months beforehand, where Islam Makhachev was scheduled to fight RDA at UFC 267 in Abu Dhabi. Now, RDA would wind up pulling out of this fight, leaving Islam Makhachev to fight a late replacement Dan Hooker. And now with RDA left without an opponent, Islam Makhachev decided to tweet out, calling out RDA and saying that he was willing to step in on a week's notice to fight RDA. Which, to give you something personal about me, I actually tweeted that I would give Islam so much respect in the world, and for a brief period of time was Islam's biggest fan because I had so much respect for this move, and to a lot of people there was no excuse for Islam not to take this fight. Now I'm going to get into my thoughts about this at the end of the video, but Islam Makhachev disputes the fact that he declined to fight and said that he was sleeping during the call that Dana White had given him. Now, the fact that Islam Makhachev said he would step in and decided not to, and the fact that a lot of people, including Dana White, clearly thought there was no excuse for Islam not to do this, seeing he was coming off of a full training camp and he just took no damage a week ago. It seemed like Dana White was upset by this. At the UFC 272 post-fight press conference, Dana White had a lot to say about Islam Makhachev and revealed that he would have to fight Beneil Dariush to get a title shot.
Obviously, if we could have got Islam to turn around, that would have been awesome, but until we even knew we had Islam, or thought we had Islam, Moicano was 100% the guy we wanted to go with.
I did want to ask you about Islam. Did he actually turn it? There seems to be some controversy over why he didn't get this fight.
There's no controversy. He turned the fight down.
He said no.
No.
Beneil Dariush and Islam Makhachev, you still want to make that fight next?
I do. But Joe Rogan just grabbed me in the hallway and told me not to.
Winner of that fight, would that be for the #1 contender spot?
Yes.
Now, like I said, this was a move that made no sense because Charles Oliveira and Justin Gaethje was already scheduled for early May. The fact that Beneil Dariush had a broken ankle meant that he wasn't going to come back for a long time. And other than Islam Makhachev, there was really no clear #1 contender. And this move was clearly fueled by anger and spite. Dana White was unhappy that Islam Makhachev wasn't willing to work with him. Eventually, it took Joe Rogan to convince Dana White to make the fight with Islam Makhachev and Charles Oliveira, and Islam would become the world champion. Now we fast forward to UFC 284. Islam Makhachev says to a Russian reporter that he's unhappy with the promotion of UFC 284. Now, a lot of people that speak Russian and English say that the translator was severely mistranslating him and that Islam Makhachev was not really trying to insult Dana White or the UFC, but nonetheless, the story got out there. And this began a popular topic: was the UFC and Dana White promoting Power Slap League instead of UFC 284? Now, this led to Dana White saying that he doesn't understand the pay-per-view numbers that were trending and said that this fight was going to break records that even Conor had made. And in my opinion, as another petty move from Dana White, he began to pretend he didn't know Islam Makhachev's name.
If Volkanovski could pull this off, it's obviously massive. And if yeah, can pull it off, it's he's on his way to building an incredible legacy.
Now, the first time I made excuses, I said, hey, this was late at night, a lot of stuff was going on, he just came off of an event, maybe he just genuinely forgot. But it became more and more apparent as he was supposed to promote UFC 284 that he was only remembering Alexander Volkanovski's name. On a show at Pat McAfee, Dana White was seen looking at the poster trying to find Islam Makhachev's name.
They're both world champions, so Volkanovski is moving up in weight to try to take his title. This is a badass fight.
Hell yeah. That's
#1 versus #2 pound for pound in the world.
And that was the latest with Dana White and Islam Makhachev's beef until Monday night, where despite beating Alexander Volkanovski, Islam Makhachev remained #2 in the pound for pound list. This was a move that I predicted, and I'm not sure if I said this in a video or if I cut it out of a video, but I said I wouldn't be surprised if Dana White did not make Islam Makhachev pound for pound #1 because I felt like that he didn't like Islam. And for those of you that are saying, hey, Dana in the UFC does not make the pound for pound rankings or any ranking, it's the media. To that I'd say, the media that makes the pound for pound rankings, the media quote unquote, they are not your MMA junkie, MMA fighting, ESPN MMA. No, they are a bunch of random media members, and I think you're severely mistaken if you think that the UFC has nothing to do with those rankings. I mean, explain how Sean O'Malley is the #1 contender at bantamweight. Obviously, to make it more marketable, the UFC definitely has something to do with these rankings, and I think for those reasons it's quite apparent that Islam and Dana White do not like each other. Now, what are my thoughts on this? First thing I want to talk about is the pound for pound rankings. Do I agree with the pound for pound rankings? I agree. I've said in the past, like, I think that this was a close fight. I've scored it both ways. I've scored it for Islam when I watched it. I've scored it for Alexander Volkanovski when I watched again. The fight was incredibly close, and pound for pound means if everybody was the same weight. So you have to wonder, if Islam and Volk were the same weight, would the fight be differently? Most likely. And to me, because of this beef, I think that Dana White will run back Alexander Volkanovski and Islam Makhachev. I think he would much rather Alexander Volkanovski be the champion. And I think this is the beginning of it. I think the more that Islam wins, the more that we're going to see Dana clearly not like Islam. And for Islam turning down the RDA fight, I don't blame him for not taking the RDA fight. It didn't really make sense. He just came off of a fight, probably lots of circumstances. He might have left Vegas already. Why would he come back? I don't blame him. But the thing I don't like is the fact that he decided to tweet out that he would fight RDA at 170, thinking RDA wouldn't accept the fight at 170. And then when Rafael decided to accept it, he quite clearly did not want to fight RDA. He quite clearly ducked RDA in that situation. And like I said, I don't blame him for not wanting to fight RDA on short notice. But then don't pretend that you want to. Anyway, guys, that's my opinion. And I think you guys will see quite clearly that he hates Islam Makhachev. Well, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave questions for the Q&A that comes out tomorrow. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please leave a like if you did, and I'll see you guys in the next one.